Arthur Schopenhauer said it best. The sexual instinct is the most deceitful of all instincts. It promises heaven but delivers repetition and disillusion. Schopenhauer saw sex not as love, not as pleasure, but as nature's most elegant illusion, a trick designed to make us serve the species while thinking we're chasing happiness. You feel desire and think it's for beauty, for connection, for validation. But at the most primal level, you're being manipulated by biology. What feels like your choice is nature's command. And for a while, that lie works. Men devote their lives to it, building status, wealth, confidence, just to earn access to the illusion. But eventually, some men wake up. They see the pattern. At first, every sexual encounter feels meaningful. The thrill of validation, the rush of newness, the illusion of conquest. But repeat it enough, and you begin to notice the truth. It's the same script every time. The chase, the build-up, the peak, the release, the letdown. Each new disappointment doesn't just hurt, it erodes desire itself. When desire is unmet, it burns. When it's satisfied too often, it numbs. That's the paradox that leads to sexual apathy. A man who's never had enough keeps chasing, thinking the next woman holds the cure. But a man who's had too much, he sees through the repetition, the performance, the emptiness behind the eyes. And suddenly, sex feels less like fire and more like a cheap drug he's tired of taking. Then come the dangerous questions. Why does this feel meaningless? What am I doing this for? And the answer hits like a blade. He's become a man who's finally outgrown the lie. Not because he's better than it, but because it no longer feeds what his soul needs. Schopenhauer didn't see this as weakness. He saw it as awakening. The moment when a man sees sex not as fulfillment, but as biological theater. When the illusion dies, it doesn't go quietly. It shatters everything that used to make sense. A man who once found meaning and desire now finds only silence. He looks around and realizes how much of his life revolved around the chase. The gym, the career, the clothes, the goals, all orbiting one hidden desire to be seen, to be wanted, to be chosen. Now that purpose is gone, and in its place there's a kind of emptiness that feels infinite. He's no longer seduced by casual hookups, no longer entertained by fantasy. But that clarity doesn't bring peace. It brings grief. Because to awaken from illusion is to mourn the man who believed in it. Schopenhauer once wrote that most human suffering comes not from pain, but from boredom. And this boredom, this void, is precisely what the disillusioned man faces. For the first time, the noise is gone, and without the noise of craving, there's only himself. He begins to feel something far worse than loneliness. He feels purposeless. Porn feels empty. Flirting feels childish. Hookups feel robotic. Even relationships feel hollow. Because he now sees that they were never truly about her. They were about him, trying to fill a void that pleasure could never reach. And when the void finally becomes visible, he can't unsee it. This is the turning point. The moment many men either relapse or rise. Some run back into the comfort of illusion. Back to casual indulgence. Back to the endless scroll of temptation. Because facing yourself without fantasy feels unbearable. But others stay. They stay in the silence. They let the emptiness do its work. Schopenhauer called this the tragedy of consciousness. That once you see through illusion, you suffer differently. You desire less but more truthfully. You can no longer lie to yourself just to feel alive. This awakening is not liberation, not yet. It's exile. He can't return to the old world of lust and illusion. But he hasn't yet found a new one to believe in. He walks between two realities, the animal world of appetite and the spiritual world of clarity. And in this limbo he grieves, not for a woman, but for the death of the man who used to be intoxicated by her. He realizes something terrifying. For so long his masculinity was built on one question: can I attract? And when that question loses meaning, he's forced to ask a deeper one. Who am I without the chase? What does it mean to be a man when desire no longer defines me? It's a spiritual crisis disguised as boredom, a death disguised as apathy. Because what's really dying is the addicted self. The self that needed attention to feel alive. The self that confused lust for love. The self that mistook stimulation for purpose. And as that self dies, something strange happens. That stillness begins to take shape. In that stillness, he starts to sense something he hasn't felt before. Not excitement, not pleasure, but power. It's as if the energy he wants, scattered across screens, women, fantasy, is returning home, back to him. Schopenhauer believed this was the first glimpse of freedom, when man no longer lives as nature's puppet, but as the witness of his own instincts. Jung would call this sublimation, the transmutation of raw instinct into higher purpose. The sexual drive becomes creative power. The urge to possess becomes the will to build. The desire to conquer becomes the strength to create. This is where the man becomes dangerous in the best way possible, because he no longer seeks energy from the world, he generates it from within. Most men spend their lives in the gravitational pull of desire, spinning endlessly between craving and release. But when a man steps outside that orbit, he becomes untouchable. He's no longer baited by beauty, no longer hypnotized by validation, no longer enslaved by the world's marketing of lust as purpose. Schopenhauer once wrote that most people live as animals, driven by instinct, reacting to desire. But the awakened man becomes something else. An architect. He designs his days, his purpose, his energy with precision. He doesn't let the world dictate his worth. He no longer lives in reaction. He lives by intention. The man who once gave himself away for pleasure now guards his time, his focus, his essence like gold. He's not empty. He's charged. Because he's no longer leaking energy through every temptation.